sees the means of production, and the like and subscribe button. Counterpoints recently made a statement on Palestine. I find this point most interesting. That was really the only outcome of the outrage. Nothing plus slightly hurting Kamala Harris. Change perspectives. Exists to do. Don't have an axe to grind with Natalie. Good job reading. It's just so dumb. Like the problem fundamentally is that Contra, I don't think, has a good temperament for the social demands of being an online public figure who discusses politics. That doesn't mean that the videos are bad or whatever. They're not. It just means that, like, you get a lot of backlash. You get a lot of hate. And I think that, you know, it's like a weakness of heart, weakness of mind kind of thing. If you're put into positions where you feel like you're very emotionally pressured, that can cook your brain a little bit. That can push you in a bad direction. I'm not clued in. She put out this like rambling narcissistic post about how she's anti in Gaza, but the reason she hasn't talked about it is because it's depressing and glib, and she feels like the left hasn't done anything productive by bringing attention to it, and it's the left's fault and the left's problem, and blah, blah, blah. So many leftists feel betrayed because I haven't made a video on Palestine. Do they actually want a ContraPoints video about Palestine? Will they be happy if I get in the bath and pour milk on a mannequin of Benjamin Netanyahu? No. I have posted about Gaza occasionally and have quietly given money to Palestinian aid orgs. But what I think what leftists really want is for me to join their chorus of anger. They sense some hesitation on my part and are judging me very harshly on my presumed opinions. I'd rather be judged on my actual opinions, so here they are. Is Israel committing in Gaza? Yes. Do I oppose it? Yes. Do I feel angry about it? Yes. I also feel a lot of other things. Chapter 1, Doom. The week after October 7th, it was clear the mood among Israeli leaders and civilians was overwhelmingly kill or be killed, existential panic, and unstoppable lust for revenge. It reminded me of the US after 9/11. There was no reasoning or protesting them out of it. Nor was it politically feasible for the US to withdraw aid to Israel on a time frame that would make a difference. It's been like 2 years now. It would have required replacing most of Congress and overturning decades of bipartisan strategy and diplomacy. Even in the best case scenario, it would have taken years. So there was a sense of futility. But worse, Chapter 2, Misery. What? Oh, the misery. The leftist pro-Palestine movement quickly decided that their primary goal was not merely opposition to opposition to Zionism in general. Yeah. That is, opposition to the existence of Israel as a Jewish state. Yeah. And here they decided to draw the line separating decent people from genocidal fascists, which had the following consequences. It shrunk the coalition. Zionist is a very broad category. Most Jews are Zionists. Anyone who supports a two-state solution is a Zionist. Mabdani, why wouldn't you visit Israel after becoming mayor of New York City? I don't have to debunk this, do I? Anyone who watches me understands why this is really bad. What she's saying is like arguing against the without arguing against Nazis. Well, it's like arguing against the without arguing against Lebensraum, right? The Gaza is a direct product of Zionism. Zionism is the reason why they were in an open-air concentration camp. It's the reason Hamas exists. It's the reason there are walls with automated turrets that shoot people when they come near. It's the reason why in the West Bank there are roads that only Jews can use. It's Zionism is the reason for all of this. Like, the Holocaust didn't happen because the people in Germany, the Nazis, said, well, we should just do one, right? It was the consequence of an underlying ideology that demanded the eradication of other groups as a way of expressing the supremacy of their own. So, yeah, I don't know. Do you think supporting a two-state solution is Zionism? There's a difference. So unfortunately, she's providing really bad analysis. The people who I know who have advocated for a two-state solution have done so as a way of addressing the immediate harm of Gaza being essentially like an occupied sub-territory of Israel, not a long-term goal. Because obviously, if you implemented a two-state solution, you would then still have a Jewish ethno-state. Like, that wouldn't change the fact that Israel, say in the West Bank, or however you drew the lines, right? Israel would still be, in law, Jewish supremacist. Like, the term a Jewish state is a dog whistle, right? Like, when white supremacists say they want America to be a white country, America is already plurality white. What they mean by that, obviously, is an ethno-state. Like, duh. If a member of the AfD says they want Germany to remain a German state, like, let's not be stupid, you know what they mean. Even if they don't mean only like ethnic German people would be there, what they're talking about is a legal and social prioritization of those groups. Obviously, this is untenable. I don't think ethno-states should exist at all. But at the very least, a two-state solution would take the pressure off, right? it would, in the immediate sense, free the Palestinians from being completely subjugated to Israeli power. So if a person believes in a two-state solution as an immediate harm reduction thing, I don't think that's Zionist. If a person believes in a two-state solution as a long-term goal in which Israel remains a Jewish ethno-state, that would be a problem. And I think that that political dynamic would still produce things like this, because you would still have a highly militarized supremacist Jewish state right next to the new Palestinian state with US weapons, with far-right backing, you know, like you get the point. It was politically infeasible. What is the pathway that takes us from the present situation to the dissolution of Israel as a Jewish state? I mean, withholding support, that would be a good start, I guess. Like, maybe it would be more difficult for Israel to remain an ethno-state if they weren't backed by the most powerful country in the world who just agrees with everything they do and supports them. Like some kind of actual line in the sand rather than what Biden did, which was multiple red lines that he would lie about. And then when Israel did like cross those red lines, nothing would happen. That would, I mean, it would be a good start, right? Some kind of meaningful political opposition. I don't see how this could happen without either a total internal collapse of Israeli society or else, you know, nuclear war. I wouldn't mind a total internal collapse of Israeli society. They're currently doing a job. I don't know. Feel like there are worse things. Like if a country's doing a like, listen, okay? I supported the UN intervention into Serbia, the bombing that we did of Serbia. And what Serbia was doing to the Albanians was nothing even remotely close to what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. So my line for when should UN warplanes drop, oh, NATO, sorry, not UN, NATO. When should NATO warplanes drop bombs to pacify the aggressors is clearly way the fuck lower than what Israel is doing right now. I don't know how the fuck you can support NATO intervention in Serbia but not support intervention into Israel. I think the UN should occupy Israel. Get some blue helmets down there for 100 years for all I care. Jesus. And stop giving them weapons. Stop giving Israel more weapons. Jesus. And then there's this wonderful line. As usual, leftists have championed a doomed cause. That's really cool. Don't support desegregation because it's not immediately feasible. Don't support an end to the Vietnam War because it's not immediately feasible. Don't support an end to the Iraq War because it's not immediately feasible. This is just fuck you territory. This is like unsalvageable. It always, at the end of the day, people, weaker people than me, I should say, always circle back around to directing their hate and orienting their politics around aggression towards people that they dislike. And the group of people that have given Contra the most shit for previous Liberty have been leftist. So it comes back around to that. Anyway, yeah, this logically doesn't work. Like, armchair psychoanalysis aside, this just logically doesn't work. Basically, every progressive cause starts out as or more doomed than opposition to Israel today. Everything from gay marriage to Contra support for trans people. Like, right now, trans rights are looking pretty bleak in the West. Do I waver? No. I think we should put our foot down and hold firm on all of it, including, you know, participation in sports. I'm consistent. If every progressive acted the way you're recommending leftists act with Palestine, consistently on every issue, nothing would ever get done. Also, right now, American support for Israel is lower than America's opposition to MLK. Or I guess what I should say is opposition to Israel is a more popular position than support for MLK during much of the civil rights movement. It introduced dangerous ambiguities. The vagueness of Zionism as a political Satan enables all kinds of rhetorical abuses. On one hand, right-wing Israelis hold up all anti-Zionist protests as existentially threatening and inherently anti-Semitic. On the other hand, there is a long history of anti-Semites using the term Zionist in deliberately equivocal ways. Yeah, sure, I don't really know what that has to do with the genocide, though. Like, there are some people who do that, and it's bad, and they should be called out. I don't really, like, people will dog whistle to take an existing cause and manipulate it to serve their bigotry. Yeah, sure, I don't really see what that has to do with the underlying point. Anti-Semites are happy for the opportunity to misappropriate the now popular anti-Zionist label to legitimize their agenda, and many people are not informed enough about anti-Semitism to recognize when this is actually happening. These problems are mutually reinforcing. Ah, but there's a difference. See, It is the Zionists themselves who disingenuously conflate Zionism and Semitism, whereas it's the opportunist Nazis who jump on the back of anti-Zionist protests to take advantage of the rhetorical ambiguity that is being created by the Zionists, by the way, and weaponize it in the service of their own ends. Or in other words, the Zionists are doing the bad thing, whereas with regard to anti-Zionism, it's another group that's trying to co-opt the language. What exactly are we meant to do about that? Or to put it another way, how could you ever criticize Israel without anti-Semites trying to take advantage of it? I mean that. I think that you should do everything you can to excise them from your movement, to make it clear what you mean, to be precise in your definitions. But how on earth could you do that? Zionists put so much effort into conflating Judaism and Israel. Like it's like their main thing. They shield themselves with it. So as a consequence, they make it very easy for Nazis and anti-Semites to, to take advantage of the rhetorical ambiguity. But what is the left meant to do about that, apart from being responsible when possible? It is, after all, like often young progressive Jewish people who are at the forefront of these anti-Zionist marches, like Jewish Voice for Peace, advocates against this old colonial ethno-state project. Chapter 3, Dread. The online left has spent the last 20 months distributing hundreds of photos and videos of dead Palestinian children. The main effect of this has been to create a population of people in a constant state of blood-boiling rage with no consequential political outlet. Palestinians share photos and videos. The Western left isn't in Gaza. The Palestinians take those videos and share them online because they don't want their suffering to be invisible. Not really the left that's creating that media. It's Israel's creating, I suppose, the subject of the media, but Palestinians are the ones documenting it. I don't understand this point. I fear this may be worse than useless. Anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism are conceptually not the same, and conflating them is dangerous, but in practice, the way Israel is perceived does seep out into attitudes about Jews in general. I don't think Jews who feel isolated and wary in the current atmosphere are simply hysterical or hallucinating. Kind of a non-statement. As previously mentioned, there are anti-Semites who opportunistically take advantage of the anti-Israel, anti-Zionist protests, but what does that mean? Like, the conflation of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism is the policy of Zionists. Like, their goal is to do that. How do you turn this into an anti-left argument? Like, if you're so concerned about the conflation of these two ideas, why is every Zionist constantly screaming it from the rooftops? I would love it if they would stop. I don't think to be honest with you, I don't think Zionism in its current form has much to do with Judaism at all. The underlying project is, of course, based in the, Jewish homeland, Middle East, so on and so forth. But as a political project, the way it manifests, it seems to be largely like a corporate and American Christian evangelical effort, where Jews are weaponized to further or the identity of Jewish people and their needs or perceived needs are weaponized by oftentimes anti-Semitic right-wingers in an effort to promote certain cultural or economic causes, Like, it's not exactly a secret that AIPAC and the ADL and other groups aligned with Zionism are usually used as bludgeons against the left. Right? Yes, there's communal trauma and hypervigilance. Yes, there's disingenuous right-wing ghouls dismissing and censoring all criticism of Israel on the pretext of fighting anti-Semitism. Wait, that's not disingenuous right-wing ghouls. That's the entire Zionist establishment. Literally, like, that is the playbook. It's not just the disingenuous right-wing ghouls. That's the entire, from Democrats, Republicans, that's the main strategy. Look at what they did to Mamdani. That's in no way like a niche strategy. There's also a valid fear of historical anti-Semitic patterns recurring, and that fear gives power to the right-wing Zionist claim that only Israel can keep Jews safe. Yeah, that's why Israel does this. Israel makes itself hateable on an international and local stage and conflates Judaism and Zionism, and then does horrible things in the name of Judaism, allegedly in the name of Judaism. They do it for Zionism, and that does attract international condemnation, which they then use to fearmonger to further legitimize their project. But all of this is the strategy of the right. Why are we pretending that the left is doing this? Like, this entire essay post is pointing out things Zionists do, but then she turns around and says, oh my God, it's like the FD signifier video. I'm getting flashbacks. They don't want solutions. They don't want to stop the genocide. They just want to endlessly critique the genocide. Oh God. I'm being sent back. Does this mean Israel should not be criticized and sanctioned? Absolutely not. But it's something I don't want to risk contributing to if not outweighed by tangible benefits. So I approach the issue cautiously. But there have been benefits to the widespread left condemnation of Israel. Democrats have been polarized against it very effectively, which is important. Like, if you, like, keep in mind, man, the Vietnam War went on for, like, what, 7 years? Lyndon B. Johnson lost for re-election because people criticized his handling, and then the war went on for, like, another 4 years or something. Like, nothing good happens immediately, and sometimes it doesn't happen at all, but you always have to try. There were probably so many people back in the 1960s who thought the civil rights movement was a waste of time. MLK, you're only polarizing people against you. The white moderates don't like the fact that you're stirring up trouble. All in good time. Quit like throwing up a fuss, you know. I don't know. I just don't. Lyndon B. Johnson did not run again. Oh, I'm sorry. No. Okay, sorry. It wasn't Lyndon B. Johnson lost re-election. It was Nixon won in large part off criticism of LBJ's handling, because he used that against the Democrats, and also he and Kissinger committed treason by prolonging the war to keep LBJ from ending it early. Yeah, I think I got that. Where's the graph? I'm looking for Cassie again. Cassie, you need to stop posting so much. You need to only post the things that I remember you posting. Why can't I find it? God, I'm bad at this. I'm trying to find the polling on Democrats' opinions on Israel. Look at this. The shift, just 12, shut up. Just 12% of Dem voters sympathize more with Israelis than Palestinians. U.S. voters were asked whether their sympathies lie with the Palestinians or the Israelis. 37% said the Israelis, 32% said the Palestinians, 31% did not offer an opinion. Among Republicans, Israel remains popular. Among Democratic voters, Israel's reputation is in shambles. Just 12% of them sympathize more with Israelis. 60% sympathize more with Palestinians. Dude! It's crazy. This is unparalleled. In less than 2 years, a seismic shift. So when Contra says that there's been no consequence of the left making this an issue worth planting your feet on the ground for, I disagree. I think your criticism should lie with the Democrats for continuing to do a very unpopular support, for continuing to support Israel when it's really unpopular with their base. Like, at what point does the blame shift from the left? Like, the left has very successfully made this a generational issue. So at what point do you turn to the Democratic establishment and you say, well, it's now on you for not acquiescing? And if your answer to that is, well, it's never on the Democratic establishment because they were never going to acquiesce, then why believe in politics? Why then never advocate for anything because the system will never change? Then why talk about politics at all? Why not just, like, roll around in the mud like pigs? Like at that point, is it me, or does this reek of privilege? This reeks of privilege largely, I think, because it's very me-focused. It's very, like, solipsistic. It's very narcissistic. I'm armchair psychologizing, but this is very much like me. You know, I don't know. If people are upset you haven't made a statement on Palestine, all you really have to do is say, I don't really want to cover that topic. It's heavy, and you should all know what I believe. But to be clear, Israel. Like, that's not difficult. It shouldn't be controversial to say the country doing a job. I don't know why, like, I just don't think it's that controversial. I don't think you would embolden anti-Semitism in your audience by saying so. And then people would probably be satisfied. I don't think the audience was demanding that she make a 2-hour video on Netanyahu where she pours milk on him. I think that's a straw man. You know what I mean? Like, if there was so people want me to cover tons of issues, right? I get emails every day, and I often don't, because there's just a limit to what I can cover, and I want to talk about stuff I am interested in talking about, you know? Like, I have to, at the end of the day, I have to center it around, like, what I think I can give a good, you know, what I can talk about, what's in my ballpark. But if somebody was curious, like, man, why haven't you talked about X? Usually my response to that is like, oh, well, to be clear, that's how I think, but I just want to focus on other stuff. Nobody forced her to make this post. Chapter 4, Bitterness. Much of the online left spent all of 2024 single-mindedly focusing on Palestine and the complicity of Democratic politicians in sending aid to Israel. Yeah, providing weapons to people committing a pretty bad. This campaign had the following effects. 0 Palestinian lives were saved. Not one fewer bomb or bullet was fired by the IDF. Okay, well, at least we know for sure then she wouldn't support protesting against LBJ's handling of the Vietnam War. Don't criticize LBJ for his handling of the war. You'll just throw the election to Nixon. You're making the Democrats look bad. It's actually 1-for-1, basically. Yeah. Okay. It may have slightly contributed to the re-election of Trump, guaranteeing the U.S. will put no diplomatic pressure on Netanyahu for at least 4 years. Yeah, Biden was doing such a good job of that. Yeah, no, I just don't buy that anymore. I don't think that Trump or Biden are any better on it. They're both totally indifferent. Well, the difference is Biden seems to actively want the Zionist project to continue, and Trump merely acquiesces to it whenever somebody in power close to him jabs him with a fork and reminds him, like, hey, we're supposed to be doing this. But otherwise, he'll just gravitate towards, like, the shiniest country, which is usually Saudi Arabia. This attitude means she will only ever support things in hindsight. Yeah, well, that's why people say, like, liberals are the people who support every civil rights cause except for the current one and oppose every single war except for the current one. I mean, it's a bit simplistic, but it's kind of true. I mean, in this case, now she says she denounces the, but the whole post here is essentially just saying nothing matters, it doesn't matter anyway, and criticizing the left. So I don't really know, like, if a person said that they disavow the but then goes on to, like, talk about the many ills and strategic failures of people who also don't like the I think I would be quite confused about the intentions of the document, apart from a performative disavowal of any responsibility for continuing to discuss the subject. Essay posting. I feel like you're missing some genuine points where organizing for Palestine could have been done strategically better. Yeah, no shit, but the same could be said of literally all protests and all things ever. That doesn't excuse this post. There are things said in this post that are pretty impossible to forgive, I guess. Like, they're not, like, contextually explainable. You know what I mean? The, what is it? As always, the left chose a losing cause. That one's pretty damn bad. And may have slightly contributed to the re-election of Trump, guaranteeing the U.S. will no longer put diplomatic pressure on Netanyahu for at least 4 years, and making protests against Israel both much riskier and less effective. Trump is also, incidentally, a menace to me and basically everyone I care about. A perfect enlightened being would feel no bitterness about this, but I do. Okay, so you feel bitterness that pro-Palestinian protesters caused Trump to win the election. Okay, so the bitterness here is... Okay, gotcha. Bit selfish. When will Democrats be held responsible for losing elections? Not in this document, I can tell you that much. I don't know, man. Maybe the Democrats shouldn't have done the thing? Maybe Biden shouldn't have spent, like, his final year in office endlessly capitulating to Israel and to the right, by the way. He was in agreement with the right on cracking down on the campus protests. Like, it went so far, and the degree to which the State Department lied to protect Israel, the fact that they were hiding internal reports, the fact that the State Department spokespeople were lying during their daily briefings to the point where it was like ludicrous. It was absurd. I mean, that part is understandable, low-key. The abandoned Harris stuff was lame. Nah, I'm not buying this shit, dog. Democrats lost that election. It was their election to lose. Okay? Trump ran a pretty terrible campaign. The Democrats were awful. They backed an unpopular... They could have... Dude, do you have any idea how different the world would be if Biden wasn't a Zionist? If he had from day one been like, Netanyahu, October 7th was terrible. We are not supporting you if you invade Gaza. Flat out. Like, there are a lot of ways this can be handled. First thing, hostage exchange. By the way, remember, keep in mind, Hamas offered to exchange the hostages like day one, as long as the IDF didn't invade Gaza. They said no. But Biden capitulated and enabled on every level what Netanyahu did, with essentially no pushback. All the pushback that I was assured was happening by centrist Democrats was behind the scenes, deftly maneuvering. You know, the Biden was really holding Netanyahu's feet to the fire, and then he debated Trump, and it turns out that Biden was an incoherent, you know, gibberish speaker the entire time. He wasn't holding anyone to anything. He was barely aware of what was going on. Of course, it's 100% the Dems' fault, no doubt, but they didn't help. Come on. If you say it's 100% the Dems' fault, that means it's nobody else's fault. Sorry, maybe the Dems shouldn't have supported a and ran a terrible campaign and ran a candidate who was so old that he couldn't speak properly, and then ran another follow-up candidate in the last few months that made a point of not breaking with Biden on any issue, no matter what. And maybe Biden shouldn't have had staffers that were protecting his reputation from the public and keeping him from actually doing his work because they didn't want to show how incompetent he was. And maybe blah, 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 blah. Oh my God, dude, the Dems put us where we are. We knew the Republicans were evil, okay? At some point, you have to blame the Dems. And sure, blame the Republicans too for being evil. I do. I'm not one of those, like, lefty types that refuses to criticize Republicans. The majority of criticisms I offer are of Republicans. But right now, the best chance we have at moving in a new direction for this country is Mamdani. Mamdani, to a lesser extent, Bernie and AOC, we need something different from the establishment, from the norm. And Democrats are the ones fighting like hell to keep that from happening. Why is it bad for Jews to have a state but not for Palestinians to have a state? You don't understand. To exist as a Jewish state, that's a dog whistle for an ethno-state. If Palestine was an Arab ethno-state, that would also be bad. And I don't think that America should give hundreds of billions of dollars of weapons to an Arab ethno-state. That fair? Yeah, that makes sense. Nice! None of this is the fault of Palestinians, of course, who are overwhelmingly the victims here. I hope that someday American policy will shift in their favor, and I will continue to support that cause. But you're very loudly not supporting that cause, Natalie. That the whole point of this post is that you're not... the whole post is disavowing and denouncing and criticizing the efforts that have been made by the left to support American policy shifting in the favor of the Palestinian people. I don't... This is just incoherent. I don't know what she was thinking with this one. TLDR, I see the situation as bleak, intractable, extremely divisive, and devoid of any element that could be appropriately transformed into political entertainment. That's why I haven't made a video about it. Nobody forced you to make this post. There are subjects I don't want to touch on. Not many, admittedly. I talk about a lot of stuff, but you could have literally just said, the Palestine stuff depresses me, free Palestine. I don't want to make a video on it because what am I supposed to say? Am I supposed to drizzle milk over Netanyahu? No. And everyone would get it. And to any of the people who were still giving you shit after that, you could have just ignored them. You have a huge audience. She has some Twitter arguments that probably caused this. Yeah, like ContraPoints has been posting and suffering the consequences of posting for longer than I've been doing stuff on YouTube. I'm aware of how her playbook works, you know? She puts forward a thought, it gets misinterpreted by some people, she overreacts to the misinterpretation, gets really in her head about it, gets depressive, retreats, and then sometime shortly thereafter comes out with like a gigantic response that, depending on how much thought she put into it, either gets received well, like the canceled video of hers, which is excellent, or poorly with this. And boy, have people received it poorly. Hopefully it goes without saying these are just my thoughts. I'm sure other bread tubers have different opinions. Yeah. Well, these were probably written from a dark place, but they're also pretty defensible. So, pretty much everyone's dogpiling her except for Ethan Klein, who's very keen on it. You can take whatever you want from that. I don't, Threlix. Why can't my left be normal, man? I mean, it's contra left? Not to besmirch the videos, but, you know, liberal, left, progressive. So much of a person's political disposition has nothing to do with what they believe and everything to do with what they do, right? Like, there are lots of ostensibly progressive people who believe in stuff like gay marriage and trans rights, who at some point in the past few years have decided that the true enemy to the rights for gay and trans people are those over-the-top trans people, you know what I mean? The ones who wear leather harnesses outside or are embarrassing online about their sexual predilections. They get it in their head, you know, this is like a I mean, ContraPoints has talked about this in her video on cringe, which is also a great video, about how you get very, very fixated on your, like, as a proxy for your embarrassment or self-hatred or whatever else, you get very fixated on what you believe to be the issue. And at the end of the day, no matter what your personal opinions are on gay people or trans people, if the only political content that you produce is dogging on obnoxious trans people, you're producing right-wing content. And a lot of these people end up getting sort of siphoned down the right-wing pipeline because then they get hate-bombed by the left and love-bombed by the right, and then inevitably their whole personality and identity is like the one good, you know, the person who used to be liberal but now realizes the real problem. People are very, very, very susceptible to being love-bombed and hate-bombed. Thankfully not me, or I would have turned right-wing a long time ago with how I've engaged with the left, but people are very, it's like weakness of the heart, weakness of the mind, you know? If you're susceptible, your positions will shift along with your feelings. It's sad, you know, there's a great mind locked up in there, but once you get, if you have one too many disagreements or with people on left Twitter, or one too many people who say like, it's problematic that you haven't personally donated 1/3 of your income to a Palestinian cause. You see too much of that, you're too affected by it, and then eventually you get stuff like this. I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen somebody come back from this, though. Can you guys think of somebody who has? Like, somebody who has done this, like, this shift, and then at some point they woke up from it and they were like, oh my god, I just posted a big rambling self-absorbed essay about why the left is the thing that's wrong with the Gaza, you know? I don't think I've ever seen that happen. Not if they stay on Twitter. Same thing is why I think Pirate Software will go anti-woke. Kind of got that vibe from the video, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. You're overreacting to what she's writing? No, I disagree. I actually think you could hold her to a much higher standard because unlike the vast majority of people who give their political opinions online, Contra is not a idiot. So there's actually a lot more intentionality behind her words. Like, oftentimes people will just say shit and they won't even know what the fuck it means, you know? So so you're like, oh, well, like you're trying to read into a statement made by Joe Rogan. And I mean, even before he went obviously right-wing grifter, she'll probably just delete the post. She posted on Reddit. Pirates donates to loads of trans charities. Really? I didn't know that. That's nice. Yeah, pretty rough though, right? I don't care, funny rhetorician. Taylor Renz is probably going to go after me soon anyway because of all the masking drama. I can't stand that shit, dude. Wait, she actually got mad about that? About masking? Taylor Lorenz? You don't think Taylor Lorenz would get upset about masking as a concept? Oh, I was going to show the original post, but they blocked me. Not Taylor Lorenz, a different person. A different person did. Don't worry about it. Consider I don't know who the fuck that is. Then become more aware. Why do so many on the left have beef with you? Groupthink.
You know what? We know why we were put here. We were brought here to rebuild the military. Match capabilities to the threats of today. So while our adversaries have produced millions of cheap drones, before us, we were mired in bureaucratic red tape. Not anymore. In June, President Trump issued an executive order unleashing American drone dominance.
This looks like ass. I think part of it is just that drones look inherently wimpy, but they're not even like following consistently. You just have like two little, they look like RC copters.
To bolster our drone industry and arm our warfighters, because that's what we're all about. So today I'm rescinding restrictive policies that stifle production, and this will unleash American manufacturing by Americans. We'll arm combat units with a variety of low-cost American-crafted drones, leveraging our world-leading engineers and AI experts. And officers must overcome bureaucratic risk aversion in budgeting, weaponeering, and training. So here's the memo we're signing today, delivered via drone. We're in the fight to win it, and we're never gonna back down.
This is a terribly shot video. We used to laugh at those Russian VDV homoerotic music videos. You can't draw a comparison because those VDV recruitment videos were objectively better produced than anything the Trump administration has put out. Also, why is Enter Sandman playing? I don't know. Mind you, Hegseth is in the shit because he went over Trump to blockade Ukraine. Oh, no one's communicating. Nobody knows what the fuck is going on.
International court to go after Russia for using toxic chemicals in the fight. Germany and Germany and the Netherlands have intelligence saying that. What does U.S. intelligence believe, and what do you believe about the use of chemical weapons? And would you agree that that's a case in court?
Well, ask John maybe to discuss it if you'd like, John.
Well, Mr. President, obviously, chemical weapons, if it's documented and its use, it's illegal. It's against all international laws of armed conflict and treaties. And obviously, I can't share in this room with this audience the intelligence that I can share with you privately. But obviously, you're not going to stand or allow for any violations of international law by anyone.
That's right. Thank you.
Could I